Hello, gunfighters. Old salt dog gunfighters, brand new gunfighters, aspiring gunfighters. Welcome back to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, with Judeo-Christian values, with real-world first-hand experience. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. So we're going to talk about a gun today. A gun that if you own, let's say 3, especially 4 guns, I can't see any way you can rationalize not having one of these. Not as a gunfighter, not as a survivor, perhaps as a gun collector or a competitor, but not as a gunfighter and a survivor. I just don't see how you can rationalize having 4 guns and not having one of these. We'll roll into the bio. If you want to skip it, skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds. That'll get you to about the main body of the episode. Don't forget to check out Good Shepherd training while you're listening if you have a chance. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. All right. So, what you've been waiting for. The gun you should have. I think probably first. But even if you don't, if you have 4 guns and you don't have one of these, explain to me how you're not wrong. And that gun is a shotgun. The shotgun, in my view, the most versatile and overall effective firearm. Period. Let me start by saying I love handguns. I've won more handgun competitions by far than any other discipline. I love precise rifle shooting. I have won far more rifle competitions than I ever have shotgun. I have competed a little bit in shotgun. I do the vast majority of my practice with a handgun and then with a rifle, and least of all with a shotgun. But if I could only have one gun, it would be the shotgun. I've said that before. Why? Because it's not about what I like, it's about what's going to keep me alive. And again, I took this from an old episode of the Survival Podcast. Jack Spirico, give credit where credit is due. Some of his old episodes on firearms are really good. Anyway, he put it this way, and I relate to this. You heard my bio. I don't remember exactly what he said. I'm going to paraphrase it, but I can count the number of gunfights I've been in on my fingers and have fingers left over, even with my bio. But I can't recall the number of times in my life that I've had to eat, put food on the table, to consume calories. When it comes to putting food on the table, I don't think anything rivals the shotgun. And all you deer hunters are out there thinking your deer rifle. If it's a really bad situation and you shoot a deer, how are you going to preserve it? This is coming from a guy that's been a professional big game hunter and guide. If you don't have a freezer that's working, if you don't have a bunch of salt stored up, which if you don't have a bunch of food stored up, you probably don't have a bunch of salt stored up. A little tactical tip right now, store salt. It's cheap now. There was a time. The word salary comes from the word salt because people used to get paid in it. That's how valuable it is. Your body needs salt and it's good for preserving food. But unless you have massive amounts of salt and you shoot an elk or a deer, you get a meal and then likely most of that food is going to go bad. Yeah, I know you can make biltong. I've made biltong. I like biltong. I like jerky. I like to make jerky. But that's hard to do with no electricity in the summer in the southeastern United States or east of the Mississippi where it's humid and hot. I probably could do it here in Arizona with nothing. But that's a massive amount of labor where I could go out and take a couple of doves pretty much every day, I think, and eat and have a decent amount of protein and forage. And if you're a deer hunter and you're an honest one, even the best deer hunter will tell you he's probably spent many days out and not taken a deer. That's one thing if you're doing it for sport. Not so much if you're starving to death. And again, I love deer hunting. I love elk hunting. I love bear hunting. I've been a professional big game hunter, and God, I love that. But I don't think it's your most realistic option for putting food on the table consistently. I think taking whatever you can get when you can get it as far as food goes in an actual, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a really bad situation where you can't just go to the grocery store and buy food. And a shotgun will do that better than anything else, in my opinion. In fact, when I would go out in the very remote Sawtooth Wilderness in Idaho, and I would go out with just, a Bible and a shotgun in my pack and sustain myself, the tool that I would bring with me was a shotgun. I had lots of other guns. But an AR, as much as I like ARs, that's not the tool for that. That's not the tool for feeding myself. Yeah, I can shoot a dove with an AR, but the whole point is to be able to cook it and eat it. If the bullet explodes it and there's not much left, then that kind of defeats the purpose. Now, you could make your case for your first gun being a handgun. I would still say your first gun should be a shotgun. But if you said, my first gun is going to be a handgun because I live in the city, I don't hunt, there's really no, wild food around here that I can harvest, and I'm much more likely to get mugged at a 7-Eleven at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I live in a place where my rights have been preserved for me to be able to carry. I would say, yeah, okay, a handgun makes a lot of sense for that one gun. Um, a gun that you can have with you all the time. That is the point of the handgun. I can see that. If you say, I was a Marine, I was a soldier, and I love my AR, and I think every red blooded American, it's his responsibility to have a, call it what you want, a battle rifle, a war fighting rifle, a way to fight tyranny. I would say, good on you. I don't disagree with that. Okay, get your AR and then get your handgun. So that's 2 guns. And you might say, I think and I hunt and I am all about foraging, but I'm going to hit the woods and sustain myself. And I think the 22 is the way to go because I can grab 1,000 rounds of ammo and put it in my pack and hit the wilderness and I'm good to go. I would say, okay, I can see that point of view. I would take a shotgun, but I can see that point of view. Okay, so that's 3 guns. So your 4th gun, before you get that next handgun, before you get that next AR, before you get the 3rd Glock that you want, if you don't have a shotgun, get a shotgun. And I see this people all the time coming in and buying handgun after handgun and this AR and that AR and this, semi-automatic black rifle. And I like those guns. And I have those guns. But if you have a collection of those and you don't have a shotgun, I would say you're not a gunfighter or a survivor, at least not as effective as you could be. Let's put it that way. Not as effective as you could be. Again, I love handguns. I've won more handgun competitions than I can remember. I love competing in handgun. I like handguns because they're challenging. I've taken more big game animals with a handgun than I can honestly remember. And I like that, but I like it because it's challenging. If I haven't eaten in 3 days and I'm hitting the woods to put food on the table, if I have any other choice, I'm probably not grabbing the handgun. A lot of men, a lot of women, they want something for home defense and they don't own a gun and they come in and get a handgun. Handguns are the hardest guns to shoot well. That's why I like them so much. I like the challenge. And if you're one of these people that's doing that and you're not going to practice with it, I would say you have to practice with any gun that you get, but there's a lot less of a learning curve with a shotgun. They're designed to point naturally. You do have to aim a shotgun. That whole crap about not having to aim a shotgun is a myth. You do have to aim a shotgun, but they inherently point very naturally. People routinely go out and hunt ducks. Ducks fly at 40 to 60 miles an hour. And let's say the kill zone on a duck is about the size of a softball, flying at 60 miles an hour. And people routinely hit those out of the air with a shotgun. You can easily, with not no training, but minimal training, get good hits on target at home defense ranges on a man-sized silhouette. And I like ARs. I like powerful handguns. I like high-capacity handguns. I like all those. But none of those have the stopping potential with a single shot as either a 12 gauge or a 20 gauge does with a good load of buckshot. They just don't. Statistics bear that out. I was a police officer. You heard my bio. I worked some regular assignments and more specialized assignments. There were times when I wanted that AR. But for general purpose, and I was one of the police armors, I had access to the armory. I had access to submachine guns, and we still had old Thompson, Tommy guns in the armory. We had all kinds of cool stuff in the armory that I could have taken out. I had a full auto M4 or whatever it was, the CAR 15, the old Vietnam style, super lightweight carbine, full auto. But my most common thing, if I was going to kick down a door literally to clear a building, I didn't want any of that stuff. I wanted a 12 gauge shotgun. I wanted a Remington 870 with buckshot, or a Benelli M1 or whatever with buckshot, and back up, in the side saddle with slugs. Why? Because I didn't care what looked the coolest on Instagram when I was going into that house. If I was raiding a drug house or doing something like that, I wanted the best tool for the job that gave me the best odds of survival. And I think that's a shotgun. I thought that then, and I think that now. Again, there were missions where I would take a full auto M4. But for most urban, close-in stuff, I think the shotgun's better. Again, I got nothing against M4s and cops having M4s. I think they should have their pick. They ought to have a partition in the center of their cruiser with both options. And again, I shoot my shotgun probably less than most of my other guns. Because it's not fun to shoot. Shooting a box of slugs is not fun. Practicing the low ready and getting a single hit on a silhouette target at home defense ranges is not super fun. Because it's so effective and so easy. But if that's an actual home invasion, that's what I want. I want effective, and I want less margin for error. I want it to be less challenging for me and more challenging for the adversary. That's what I want. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for your first gun, I'm not saying it's always the right choice, but I'm saying don't think that you have to have a $4,000 AR-15. There's nothing wrong with those. But if it's your first gun, perhaps look at a shotgun. Just because something's cheaper, just because something's older, doesn't mean that it's less effective. Less effective for what? People will discount the shotgun because it's a short-range weapon. It's not hard to get hits with a slug, out to 100 yards. I'm talking just a regular shotgun and regular Foster slugs. If you practice with them, 100 yards, most people will consider short range. But think about that. That's an entire football field. Think about most, not all, but think about the vast majority of defensive situations you could picture actually happening in your life. And think of whether they happen at greater than a football field away. I'm not saying it can never happen, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have an AR. I'm not saying you shouldn't have those cool battle rifles. I think that a man should have that. But I'm saying that doesn't make it the best tool for every job. I'm saying if you're looking at a first gun or the next gun and you already have, let's say, a handgun or something, think about what scenarios are likely and probable, like being able or having to feed yourself or a home invasion versus a Red Dawn scenario. We're probably closer to a Red Dawn scenario at the time of this recording than we have been in my lifetime. World War III, world wars get kicked off by small stuff. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But what's most likely in the near future? If you want, to just be a gun collector or you're a competitive shooter, and I love competitive shooting. If you want to have, 7 or 8 AR-15s in different configurations, that's fine. But if you have all that and you don't have a shotgun, I'd say that you really missing a hole in your arsenal. And you're more of a collector and a competitor, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great, but this is not gun collector life. This is gunfighter life. Really give a good hard look at a shotgun. Forget all the myths about shotguns. You do have to aim them. The sound of you racking a shotgun is not necessarily going to make a bad guy crap in their pants. I've heard that from people that I really respect otherwise, and I've heard them say that. And from my time as a police officer, I've dealt with suspects that were so drugged out under the influence of controlled substances that it wouldn't have mattered if you'd have put the shotgun in their mouth. They wouldn't have known what you were doing, let alone being scared of the racking of a shotgun. So get rid of that myth. Get rid of the myth that shotguns never jam. Shotguns do jam, and they break, just like any other mechanical device. But most of the good designs out there are meant for all around. They use pretty much the same action for hunting and defense, and they're meant to be dropped in the mud and had freezing salt water thrown on them and all manner of just atrocious things and still work. All guns need maintenance. Even AK-47s and even a 12-gauge pump shotgun, but they need far less than most guns. That is an advantage, but don't get drawn into the myth. But they are a great, great tool. If you have a couple of guns, you're looking at getting your next gun, you don't have a shotgun, I would really encourage you to look at a shotgun. If you still are not on board, answer me this. Honestly, what other firearm will let you hunt anything from a mourning dove to a grizzly bear and anything in between. What gun has the versatility of a shotgun? You can throw in, some 7.5 shot and hunt doves and all kinds of small birds. You can go to the little bit bigger shot, BB size shot, and hunt geese and ducks and things like that, and turkey. Again, you could shoot, a goose with your 30-06 with your deer rifle, but your whole point of shooting it is because you want to eat that day. And yeah, shotgun will do a fine job at a lot of the small game stuff. But if somebody kicks down your door in the middle of the night and I can put in your hand a 22, even a really good tactical 22, a 10-22 with a fully loaded magazine, I would much rather have that than nothing in my hands if somebody kicked in my door in the middle of the night. But would you rather have that or a 12 gauge with double-aught buck? And again, anything up to and including grizzly bears. I've been a big game hunter and guide, and granted, I've never been one in Alaska, but I've heard that that's one of the things they go to for, big brown bear defense is a 12 gauge with slugs. Why? Because it kills effectively. And a problem not seeing that bear hunting guide backing up his client with an AR-15 and 223. Nothing wrong with an AR-15 and 223. It's a great gun. It's just not the right tool for that job. What other gun is going to let you take out a charging grizzly bear and then also take a covey of quail out of the air and also be a great tool for home defense or for really any defense, for for a truck gun or anything like it? I'm not saying it's the best tool for every job. I'm not saying you should throw your AR-15s in a lake and the shotgun is the only tool that you need. I'm not making that case. That's one of the great things about living in America. We can get access to these guns. But I think in my opinion, again, this is my opinion and based on firsthand real world experience, it is the most effective gun. And if I could only have one firearm, period, and not cheat and be like, I'm going to get an AR lower and build all kinds of guns off of it. I'm talking just like one gun. I would take a shotgun. So I love to hunt, I love to feed myself, and I want to be able to protect my family. And if I had to pick one, the shotgun would be it. Thankfully, we don't have to do that. But putting yourself in that thinking of if you could only have one should tell you how important the shotgun is and that it should be a tool in your arsenal if you consider yourself, again, a gunfighter, somebody ready to defend your family and be able to feed yourself. If you look throughout history, it's not uncommon to not have grocery stores. You can just go in and buy all the food that you want. There's lots of ways to feed yourself. There's gardening, there's farming, there's permaculture, there's foraging, there's trapping. I'm not much of a gardener because I guess what you would call semi-nomadic, but I love hunting and I love foraging. And I love fishing. But when it comes to hunting for food on the table, my favorite tool for that is a shotgun. We've done other episodes on the shotgun, both here and if you don't know about the Alpha Male podcast, on the Alpha Male podcast, you can go there and just look up shotgun if you want more content on shotguns. I could go down rabbit holes and just talk about birdshot sizes for an entire episode and then buckshot sizes for an entire episode. And if you guys want that, let me know, but that's probably a little bit gun nerdy for most people and most listeners. Some of you might love it. I would love it. But it might alienate a big portion of the audience. But let me know if that's something you want. I guess I should throw in there, I would say today, and it breaks my heart to say this because I love the Remington 870, but I just got a new one of the new manufacturer ones when I heard Remington came out of bankruptcy and they were going to produce them again, and I was really, really disappointed. As somebody that's got quite a bit of experience with the older 870s, the new one, I literally had to do a bunch of work to it to get it to actually function. So that whole thing about pump shotguns don't jam, that 870 wouldn't run brand new. I wrote Remington and waited and got no response. So if you can find an older 870, great. But I think for an all-around shotgun, you should have a reasonable rate of fire. To me, that means pump or semi-auto. If I had to pick one, mine would be a Benelli M2, but those are kind of spendy. if I had to pick one for most people right now, I'd have to say it's going to be a Mossberg 500. They always were neck and neck, kind of the Mossberg 500 crowd and 590 crowd, and the Remington 870 crowd. And I always like the 870 better, but with the quality of the new ones now, I really can't recommend them. So if you're going out and getting a new one, I really would recommend the Mossberg 500 and their cheaper version, which is I've never heard of anybody having reliability issues with them. I'm sure somebody has. There's some with every gun, but they have a good reputation. The Maverick 88 is their budget version of the 500, the 500 series. There's all kinds of like the 500, the 590. I know the 510, but anyone in that series, I believe, are good shotguns. I like semi-autos. I think they're a better choice, but they cost much more. So better, yes, but they might cost 3 times as much. I'd say if you're going with a semi-auto, then go with a very good quality one, a Beretta or a Benelli. And 12 or 20 gauge, take your pick. If you don't know the 12 gauge is bigger than 20, the numbers are opposite if you're kind of new to the world of guns. But either one, just pick one. 12 is the most common. It's what the military uses. It's what police use. Um, there's a lot of advantages to a 20, but if it's your first shotgun, I'd probably steer you towards a 12. Nothing else in the ammo is probably cheaper and easier to find. And then 20 gauge after that. There's a few other gauges, but those are probably your go-to unless it's a specialty shotgun. And then you probably know what you want. The gold standard for the police and military for a long time has been double-aught buck for defense. There's a good reason for that, especially for police work. But my favorite go-to load is number 4 buck. I shot my biggest bear with number 4 buck. I don't know how many deer I've taken with number 4 buck. I like number 4 buck, whether it's 12 gauge or 20 gauge. I like that load. Again, the lower the number, the bigger the shot. Just like the lower the number, the bigger the shotgun. But if you're new to shotguns, you're probably just going to find double-aught buck. The aught is 00 for the newer shooters. I don't want to alienate people and just use all these gun terms and not explain them. Buckshot sizes could be an entire episode. And if you guys want that, like an episode on buckshot, an episode on different kinds of slugs, the 12 gauge versus the 20 gauge, maybe we'll do that and that'd be fun. But not for today. Today, it's just consider the shotgun, especially you already have 1 gun or 2 guns or 3 guns. If you have 4 guns, one of them I think should be a shotgun, and if not, tell me why. And if you do want to tell me why, you can go to goodshepherdtraining.com. You don't have to sign up for Patreon, but the patrons get to talk to me on a pretty regular basis on there. There's even a group chat we have set up on Facebook if you're interested in, and not just me giving advice, because I get a ton of advice from the patrons. Good advice. Good. In fact, a lot of the tactical tips, and the tactical tip of the day is going to come from a patron. Anyway, goodshepherdtraining.com. And if you like this podcast, if you thought the content was worth the fraction of the cost of a box of ammo, consider supporting on Patreon. And the tactical tip of the day is going to come from one of the patrons, Pat. He said a good thing for your bug out bag is a really good high-powered pair of reading glasses. And he specifically mentioned for taking out splinters. Like the kind of reading glasses that really magnify what you're looking at. And I think that's a fantastic idea. It's a great tip. He mentioned specifically for getting out splinters. Since I live in Arizona, when I go hiking, getting cactus in me and in the dog is a pretty regular occurrence. Also, for stitching up something, whether that's clothing or if need be yourself or somebody else. Also, it's a backup way to start a fire. So it's a great thing to have in your kit. And in fact, I probably should put those reading glasses in my little baby bug out bag. It's a great tip, and that's just one of the cool things. We help each other out. With that, men, that's going to bring us to the tactical verse of the day. I think this is fitting. I just turned to it since we talked about salt in the beginning. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. If you're a man of God, if you're called, by God, saved by Jesus Christ. You are set apart. You are different. You are a light. You are salt. People crave salt. They see light and salt in you. They want what you have. They want that joy and that peace that they should see in you. To be that salt and light in the world. Thanks, man, and have a blessed day.